Stronghold Nuzlocke. What does that even mean? So I came up with this challenge in designing a separate concept for a Stronghold Plays Pokemon challenge, kind of like my Skyrim Plays Pokemon, Destiny 2 Plays Pokemon, and Phasmophobia Plays Pokemon challenges. And instead of naming it that, because I've never followed those names even though they're absolutely perfect, I wanted to name it Stronghold Nuzlocke. But then I got to thinking, what if I actually did a Nuzlocke challenge in Stronghold without Pokemon even being involved? What would that be like? And so I came up with this rule set. You can't have allies, you gotta play with at least 2 enemy leaders and play in normal mode. Your starting unit is the archer. You can't produce any other units other than the archer until you kill an enemy leader. And then once you kill an enemy leader, you choose one of the units that they had, and you can now produce that unit. Engineers are a special case, and we'll get into those later. Importantly, you have to be the one to kill the enemy leader to receive a new unit. If another leader kills them, you don't receive a new unit. And you just keep going until you win the board. So those were the rules going into this session. I chose Snake, Caliph, and Pig as my opponents. I'm thinking of doing this, choosing the opponents differently from now on, but I'll touch on changes to the rules and things like that at the end of the video. My strategy going in was to build up my archers to a decently sized army, maybe a couple hundred, and then overwhelm Snake. And once I killed Snake, I could have engineers, which I would use to siege Caliph, and then finally take down Pig with engineers, archers, and Arabian swordsmen. I start out as I typically do, building resource and food gatherers. I don't need iron right now, and I don't see me needing it at all in this run, but you can sell iron for a good steady profit, so I went ahead and put up some iron mill things, and then I set up a Fletcher armory and barracks and started producing archers. Unfortunately, and yet predictably from the very beginning, Snake and Caliph both targeted me. Snake and Caliph were both sending torchmen at me at once, which was fine. I had built a well because I knew Caliph used torch strats. I didn't think about Snake, but archers can one-shot the torchmen, so it wasn't too big of a deal. But then Snake and Caliph decided to both launch an attack on me at the same time. While the archers, swordsmen, spearmen, laddermen, all that were distracting my archers, and me, honestly, one of the waves of torchmen from both Snake and Caliph made it behind my fort and set fire to my buildings. Then, while I was rebuilding what was burnt down, that a lot of buildings burnt down, while I was rebuilding all that, another wave of Caliph's torchmen made it through. At some point in the previous battle, all of the archers on my eastern tower were killed, so nothing was there to stop that wave from coming in and setting fire to my barracks again. I was pretty much just trying to survive at this point. I was just trying to make it through the game. I produced some more archers to man the eastern tower, and I was running really low on every resource, including gold. And without that, I couldn't purchase bows. In retrospect, I should have set up some more Fletchers. I only had one at this point. That would have cut the cost on archers considerably, since then I wouldn't have had to buy so many bows. We had enough wood production for several, but I just wasn't thinking about it. But after a couple more waves of torchmen from both sides and a failed attack from Snake, we were somewhat back on track with resource gathering. Iron was producing again, so I could sell all that and then keep a steady stream of archers coming in. But then Snake pulled his ultimate power move out against me. And while it wasn't going to kill my leader or destroy my fort entirely, it was still a hindrance and used up a lot of my concentration that I could have used somewhere else. And it was this catapult. Well, not specifically this one catapult, but his catapults and where he places them. He placed them just out of reach of my archers. So the catapults can just continuously pelt my walls and towers and pretty much face no consequence. And this is where this challenge starts making you think about how you want to use your units. I had no engineers, so I couldn't put ballistas up on the towers. That's normally my go-to for catapults and trebuchets. I could send a wave of archers down in front of the walls to take the catapult out real fast, but then they're out in the open, and I really need all of them on the walls to take out any waves of torchmen that might be sent my way. So I decided to build a tower a bit further out from my wall in hopes the archers would be able to see the catapult. And they could, and they eventually took it out. But I had to keep rebuilding my wall the entire time the catapult was firing at me. And not only that, but in the future, the catapults might start further back and target the tower I just built, being just out of reach of these archers, and the cycle just kind of continues from there. Anyway, Snake and Caliph launched another joint attack on me, but this time the pig joined in on the fun and attacked from the front. And Snake had another catapult. I honestly thought I was going to lose here. Torchmen ended up getting behind my fortress and lighting some buildings on fire. The fire ballistas from Caliph took out my whole eastern tower of archers. We somehow stopped Pig, and I'm still not sure how. I'm assuming Caliph and Pig attacked each other while they were setting up the siege. That's the only thing I can figure out. Caliph's swordsmen were steadily breaking down my walls, and Snake launched another offensive on fort, taking out the tower I had built earlier. And then Caliph's men broke through the walls. They destroyed my granary before my archers finally took them all down. Okay, we survived. Now we need to rebuild again. But then Caliph took a page out of Snake's book and put 3 catapults just out of reach of my archers. And they destroyed my northern tower. I did what I mentioned previously and sent a wave of archers down in the field, and they were able to take out the catapults pretty quickly. It's a little micromanagey, and I don't like having to actively defend my fort by moving troops around. But it works. It works, and it took them out fast enough. I had enough stone at this point, so I started reinforcing the walls of my fortress and got them pretty dummy thick to the point where swordsmen shouldn't be able to make it through again. I don't think. And sure enough, on the next wave of attacks, the swordsmen didn't even make it through one width of the wall. So I barricade the other north-facing wall and put up lookout towers. I don't know if they will give a height advantage and help against the catapults, but they can't hurt. And sure enough, the towers didn't help, but they look cool, I guess. Overall, at this point, my resources started looking a lot better. Iron production is steady, and I have an alehouse now for more popularity, so I can tax quite a bit more too. With all that falling in line, I start building up my archers for my full-on attack on Snake. And the timing worked out perfectly, because as I was building my army up, Caliph and Pig both attacked Snake. But then Pig sent his matesmen over to my fortress, and I'm still not sure why he did that. I guess just funny AI things, I don't know. Pig is acting kind of funky in this game. I took this opportunity to try to overwhelm Snake, hoping his army was weakened from his failed attack on my fort and from defending his own fort. And I failed spectacularly. He had quite a few more troops than I thought he did, and I put my archers right where all of his ranged units could attack me. So that loss was partly poor positioning on my part, and partly poor judgment of his total army size. But all in all, we lost very little in that fight, just archers, nothing of actual worth. I still have plenty of golden resources, so building an army back up isn't really a problem right now. I tack on another armory so I can bulk purchase bows, and I buy so many and hire so many archers, I actually do end up running out of gold. Which again isn't too much of a problem because our resource gathering ability is so good right now. But had I had more archers, I wouldn't have to worry about gold so much. So, I mean, I am learning a lot in this run, but and we haven't lost yet. After building my army up again, I launched another attack on Snake, and it fit in perfectly with Caliph's assault. This time, I also positioned my archers appropriately, taking out the first defensive tower before moving deeper into Snake's area. I only lost about 50 archers in the first wave, but his troops took massive casualties, and as long as I stayed put kind of by his wall on the south side and nobody else intervened, we could keep his army numbers down. I recruited more archers and reinforced what was left of the initial wave against Snake, and I planned on killing him at range, but then Caliph launched another siege as I was attacking, and I was really worried he was going to send his Arabian swordsmen into Snake's fort. So I sent my archers in to overwhelm and melee Snake, and we actually took him down. This was a huge win, because now this means I can take one of Snake's units as my own. And of course, I chose engineers, one of the most powerfully diverse units in the game, almost brokenly diverse. Engineers are incredible for both defense and tower-mounted weapons, offense against enemy units through fire ballistas, and offense against enemy structures through catapults, trebuchets, and the like. As soon as I unlocked engineers, I knew this challenge was going to have like a snowball effect victory. So I'll be making a change to how engineers are used in the rules, and we'll talk about that at the end of the video. But as far as my current run goes, I quickly hired several pairs of engineers to man some newly built ballistas on my square towers. And they started putting in the work immediately. 4 of the 5 close enough to Caliph's fortress, they were firing on anything that walked out of his gatehouse at pretty much all times. They really proved their worth when Pig showed up with a catapult at that perfect spot out of the range of my archers. The ballistas were able to hit the catapults and stop them from being too much of a hindrance. I hired enough engineers to construct 11 catapults for a siege on Caliph. I think one of my engineers died to some archers though, because I only ended up with 10 catapults, but that's still plenty. I targeted Caliph's fortress and started absolutely tearing through the walls. One thing that makes Caliph's fortress so weak is its design. It's just a straight rectangle. It's pretty much asking you to break down the front wall with a large number of catapults, because once that front wall is down, the stones can just tear straight through the rest of his buildings. I then get some engineers to build a few fire ballistas, which I add to the catapult attack as reinforcement against enemy troops and potential fire starters. And oh boy, did they start a fire. I kept whittling down his walls and towers with catapults until eventually he recycled the majority of his buildings and towers, and then I sent in my archers to take out what was left of his army. While doing this, the pig attacked me, but honestly, he didn't get anywhere with the assault. I had so much gold and resources at this point, very little could hinder me building my army of engineers up, and that was exactly what I did, constructing 5 more fire ballistas and setting them up to attack what few troops are left of Caliph, and then Caliph himself. While the archers and fire ballistas were slowly whittling Caliph's health down, I went ahead and built a mercenary post for the Arabian swordsmen I would be recruiting, sold enough iron to get me up to 12,000 gold, and started stacking up on bows again to repopulate my archers. And then Pig attacked me again. And this attack went even worse than his last one did. Some of his poor engineers didn't even get a chance to get inside their equipment before my fire ballistas 360 no-scoped them. I did a quick census and saw that I had almost 180 archers in the field attacking Caliph, which was over 100 more total troops than what Pig had. But just to strengthen my army even more, I started selling more resources for gold so that I could hire a big wave of Arabian swordsmen. As I went to do that though, I noticed 3 macemen attacking my fortress from the south side. I don't know how they got back there or why they were only attacking the wall and nothing else, but I have to give them props for it and for not giving up. I put my archers on the small gatehouse though, and they made quick work of them. It was then I decided that I was ready for the next attack, so I just charged Caliph with the archers that I had at his fortress and finished him off. Good old melee style. So that was 2 leaders down, and we can now choose a unit from Caliph. And I've already said it, but officially I chose the Arabian swordsmen. They're a good melee unit and will make killing a leader go a lot faster and a lot more reliable than just counting on archers and fire ballistas. I could have chosen instead the torchmen, horse archers, fire throwers, or Arabian bows, as Caliph also makes use of them, but I felt like we were doing fine in the ranged unit category, and I already had fire ballistas for starting fires if I wanted to do that against the pig. So I hired a little over 70 Arabian swordsmen and moved my units into position to attack Pig, sending my fire ballistas out front to shoot at some of the dairy farms in front of his fortress. I was hoping to lure some of his troops out so that my archers could start picking them off, but he wasn't exactly taking the bait. But then as soon as I started taking down his walls with my catapults, that lured some of his macemen out, and we pretty quickly did away with them. I exacted my revenge on him, constantly putting his catapults just out of reach of my archers, and did the exact same thing to him taking out one of his square towers and his small gatehouse, then moving up my ranged units little by little to take out his troops safely. It didn't take long before there was a big hole in his defenses, big enough where I was comfortable sending in my Arabian swordsman for the final kill. The census said he still had 60-something troops when I started sending them in, which could be scary since they were crossbowmen, which I believe take out Arabian swordsmen in 3 or 4 hits, and macemen, which do some pretty significant damage to units. But I think their numbers were a little off because I didn't see that many troops once he sent his macemen down to intercept my swordsmen. I even tried to count while I was editing this video, and I'm pretty sure the total number was about 15 to 20 units off. It also helped that my fire ballistas were taking the macemen out in about 4 hits each. The swordsmen marched through the big gap in the wall straight up the keep and quickly took out Pig, resulting in very few casualties on my side. And with that, I completed the first Stronghold Nuzlocke, and it was a lot of fun. I didn't expect the early game to be as difficult as it was, but it wasn't a bad difficult, if that makes sense. It was just a really good challenge. Looking back on things I could have improved on, I could have definitely increased the amount of Fletchers I had. If I had 3 or 4 more producing bows constantly, I think it would have helped out a lot more in the early to mid game when I was still trying to fight Snake. And also taxes and iron production, I could have started taxes a lot sooner, and definitely could have produced a lot more iron sooner than I did. If you notice, earlier on I only had 2 iron smelters, but then later on in the video I had, I think, 5 total, and that really helped iron production and helped my gold increase a lot faster. And population in general, I had enough food resources, so I could have had a higher population to help get more troops faster and easier. If you paid close attention, you probably noticed that I put my quarries to sleep anytime I wanted to do a mass recruitment of archers. But then I would forget to get them working again, and I actually ran out of stone while fighting Pig because of that, which ended up not mattering in the end, and I was honestly very lucky for that. So having more people around the campfire at all times instead of putting the quarries to sleep could have helped in that regard, and it would have increased the tax income. So here are my final thoughts on Stronghold Nuzlocke and rule changes that I'll be using from now on. The opponent selection being completely up to me kind of felt like I was cheating, being able to pick exactly who I would be up against. But then when I actually got into the game and realized how difficult it was starting out, I think it's okay to pick your own opponents. I mean, you're doing this as a challenge for you, so if you want to fight 3 rats and only gain spearmen, then by all means do that. But as an added challenge, or to make it quote-unquote hardcore, randomly picking enemy leaders with like a dice roll or something could make it pretty interesting. You might end up with Rat and Saladin, and I mean, that would be... How would you even do that? Now, the big rule change. Engineers. Oh boy, engineers. As soon as I unlocked engineers in this run, I knew it was over. I was just going to win. So going forward, the rule for engineers is you can only build whatever the defeated leader had their engineers built. So I killed Snake. Therefore, with this rule applied, my engineers could only build catapults. Then as you kill other enemy leaders, you take their knowledge of siege engines for free and can build more. So if I were to kill Caliph with this rule, I would then have access to fire ballistas, and I could choose one of his units to have as my own. And if I were to kill Pig, I would have access to the battering ram, and again, I would choose one of his other units to have in my troops. I feel like this keeps it balanced while also rewarding those who go up against tougher enemies. Like if you were to kill Lionheart, you'd have access to catapults, trebuchets, battering rams, and all the tower weapons and oil as a really good reward for defeating him. But defeating Snake, I mean, he's much easier, so all you get is the catapult. And last but not least, the name is still pending. The more I think about the rules and how they relate to the game, the less it sounds like a quote-unquote Nuzlocke. I'm leaning towards calling it Stronghold Assimilation because you are taking and learning from one leader and applying it to your own troops, or assimilating their ways of attacking and defending. Actually, you know what? Yeah, that's a good name for it. We're going with that. Stronghold Assimilation. So I hope you enjoyed this video of the freshly dubbed Stronghold Assimilation Challenge. As always, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to stick around and subscribe for more content. I have plenty coming down the pipe. Leave a comment down below about what you think of this challenge. If you're going to try it, who would your preferred enemies be? That kind of thing. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.